call-in correspondent, media watchdog, all-around wise-ass, Momo, Matt Moseley. Uh, Put this one together quickly because there was some big news that happened over this weekend that just sort of typified a topic that we're both pretty fond of talking about, which is, what has happened to the media, mainstream media. Specifically, the Chris Cuomo firing from CNN was pretty big news. It was big news because, they still have somebody like Jeffrey Toobin walking the hallways around there. And so whatever you do short of that, I guess, self-flagellation on a Zoom call. But Chris Cuomo he made several errors, but he made the cardinal error, too, of maybe telling part of the truth a little bit at the time until it finally got to a point where once the whole truth came out and he had some allegations against him for sexual assault from his time at ABC and at CNN, it turns out. And of course, anybody who's watched that clown over the last couple of years, the whole thing he did with his brother, with two of them interviewing each other every night, which may be the most unethical thing that's ever occurred in broadcast journalism. Regardless, he's gone, but it just sort of typifies a lot of what's wrong with the media. And when I read this article in a Reuters report, Mo, and it's a one-question survey. 46 countries, 92,000 respondees. The question basically is, I think you can trust most news most of the time. And do you want to guess the percentage of Americans that said yes?
My guess would be 25%.
Wow, okay. 29%.
Not bad.
So out of the 46 countries, where does he think that placed the United States of good old America?
I would say last.
Dead last.
Yeah.
We are dead last. The land that has probably created the whole thing. The digital media, broadcast journalism, whatever you want to call it, journalism. We're going to call it that. That's a stretch. We don't trust the media. And if you're talking 29%, that's sort of removing the party lines from it. That's sort of removing a lot of the age demographics, racial demographics. When 71% of your people don't trust the media, that's covering a wide swath of people.
It's covering a huge.
Bro? What happened?
Well, to my best guess, it's money, right? It's related to ratings and money and clicks. Clicks is the new deal, right? So it's just an impossible thing. If you go back and look at the 71% or the 29%, if you ask probably on the conservative side, it's probably 10% trust the media.
Yeah.
And if you go on the left-hand side of the political spectrum, it's a higher percentage.
Yeah.
Right. But, in the end, it's whether it's Fox News, which, I'll watch sometimes, CNN, MSNBC, which I very rarely watch. It's all slanted to one side, right? Yeah. I think we're probably going to touch upon this, but, CNN ratings are just miserable. And That's the thing about Chris Cuomo. He was their best, which was, if I remember correctly, it's under 1 million viewers, right? But that's their best.
He was
under 1 million viewers.
Ugly person they had. Yeah, he was the best or the worst.
And it starts at the top with Zucker. But it would be great, just a great test, if CNN just did a complete 180 and they actually just went middle of the road and just to see what kind of ratings they would get. No doubt they would get better than what they had.
They'd have to.
But the question is, how much appetite would there be for it? Like for me, the reason I can only watch Fox News some of the times is because I get tired of partisan. Now, they're not always as partisan, in my view, as others. But, I get tired of the same old points, the same old things. There are certain shows that actually have good political discussion, which is really what I want if I'm going to get into politics. I want good political discussion, and you just can't really find that in many places anymore.
Yeah, when you get on and you think maybe you're watching a show that has some sort of nonpartisan viewpoint, it turns out even that's not really true. I love Greg Gutfeld, like I know you do. I'm sure you've watched The Five, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and The Five,
correct,
which is usually 4 conservatives and 1 left-leaning person who they just try to humiliate and beat the hell out of.
Right.
And Or remember when it was Hannity and Combs and
I, lo-
Hannity?
I loved Hannity and Combs, and the funny thing about it is, I really, really loved Alan Combs,
Yeah, well,
and
he
I
seems
do
more
not
rational of the two.
right, and I do not like Sean Hannity. I just won't watch him.
No, Hannity is he's sort of the caricature of what I think if you ask most Democrats what they think all of Fox is like, I think he
Right,
is the caricature.
he is the poster boy for the bad side of Fox. Correct.
Right. So, and you mentioned Zuckers, and so that's an interesting thing because CNN used to be. I can remember growing up. I mean, we've all seen it in the airport pretty much our whole life, which I understand is now ending. Thank God.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, I believe that
That's
contract is ended.
oh gosh, that's final.
But Zucker was the guy who took over CNN. I believe it was 2013, and at the time, like now, they were in the crapper, and he decided, and it was a conscious decision that they were going to be less about boring news and more about opinions and more about entertainment and more about bombastic type hosts. I mean, two of his first people he brought on, or first three, I believe, were Cuomo, Don Lemon, who is, don't even get started, and Jake
Yeah.
Tapper, who I think Jake Tapper is the closest to sometimes giving you an objective opinion.
That's
But,
yep.
that was a conscious decision so they could have, like you said, ratings. Because you already had avowed sides drawn. MSNBC, everybody knows, is the hackiest of all left channels. Fox is the hackiest of all right channels. Watch them at your own discretion. Take it all with a grain of salt because both of them are blowing smoke up your butt. But that kind of gives the rise to CNN's going, okay, well, we got to get into this mix. So we got to start doing the opinion pieces. Unfortunately, they offer opinions only on one side of the spectrum, so they
Yeah.
just kind of become a running buddy of MSNBC.
Well, then it becomes a choice whether you're going to watch MSNBC or you're going to watch CNN, and obviously MSNBC has dominated CNN.
Oh yeah, yeah, they have.
Right? Yeah. Even on the right side, you get like Newsmax and OAN that have kind of come on the scene. And I know people, that have just sworn off Fox News and going over to Newsmax or to OAN. I'm struggling with saying that,
It's a terrible call sign. OAN. That's a terrible call sign.
but again, I actually like true give and take. Even though I end up mostly on the right side of the political spectrum, I want to hear good opinions as to why somebody on the left we should go that way. And you just don't get that anymore. I think the closest to it that I'll watch is the special report with Brett Baer. Because, you said on the five, their person on the left is usually a punching bag. What was it? What was the guy?
Juan. They bring Juan
Yeah.
Williams out there, and
Juan Williams. And he wasn't articulate enough. As I struggle with my words, say OAN, being articulate. He wasn't articulate enough to really make a good point of view. And they have some good people every once in a while, and that's what Special Report does. I mean, as much as I don't like PBS, they have a lady from PBS that always has a good, differing point of view, and she makes a solid argument for the left side on things. And it's like, yeah, that's what I want to hear. I don't have to agree with it, but I just want some decent banter back and forth.
well, what's happened is given rise to the digital news. It's given rise to the podcasters and the individual independent news sites because you can't trust the corporate media. They're all preaching their whatever their talk track is, and it's all in exchange for money. But you think somebody like Joe Rogan, let's use him since he's become such a lightning rod lately. There's a reason why people listen to Joe Rogan. Sometimes the shows are tediously long and hard to listen to, but when he takes on a topic, he doesn't let anybody get away with bullshit. He genuinely is curious about all sides of the issue, and I can appreciate that. And I think a lot of people can appreciate that. So when he started getting into more of a political stance, we started talking about, some of the things that are hot issues, like, I don't know, ivermectin. Instead of listening to the actual podcast where he talked about it, it became a full-on attack on Joe Rogan. I mean, why in the world would you do that? They want to be the headline instead of be the news. And that's why people started, Well, I mean, they didn't start. I mean, CNN, they had one storyline for 4 years that carried them, and now that person's gone, kind of.
Well, I don't listen to Rogan. I don't do much of him. But when he had Sanjay Gupta on,
Oh yeah.
I did catch that one because he just tore him apart. And and God bless Sanjay Gupta. At least he was honest to some extent about the thing, right? But he had some great points, and Gupta had zero good responses, and he didn't try.
No, he didn't, and he half-truthed it a couple times too.
Yes.
Because he was in a terrible position. But
Right.
even after the fact, when everybody's pretty much universally agreed he got destroyed, Rogan comes to Gupta's defense, saying
Yeah.
no, he's actually a very nice man. It was a tough interview for him. He had the guts to go on, and I
Right.
think a lot of these guys, the Tuckers and the Brian Stelters and the Don Lemons. Let's say Don Lemon went on Ben Shapiro, for instance. I'd listen to that. I would give him all the credit in the world for going and standing up and actually giving some factual answers rather than being a one-way dialogue all night. And I think that's what we have. We have a lot of talking heads giving their opinion and telling us they're journalists.
And that's the problem, right? What is journalism? I mean, even, gosh, goes back years ago, Witsy, on the opinion page, the editorial page versus the news page, right? And even the newspapers blurred that immensely at a later time. And so even when they write their stories, they still have their opinions in it. They still, it all depends on their adjectives, right? How they're describing something. And you can tell which way they go on the political side, right? So it's supposed to be all about facts. Journalism. I took journalism in 10th grade at Bowie High School, and that's the first thing you learn about is the facts, right? You just stick to the facts of the story. You don't make your biasness, your personal things about it. It's all about the facts. You report the facts, and we just don't have that anymore. And that's part of the downfall of the paper industry, much less the internet side of it. So there's a guy that I like and respect, and he's on Fox News, but he's Jonathan Swan from Axios.
Okay.
And I watched something on Fox News the other night, and they had him on, and they show him interviewing Ted Cruz, and the important part, what you never see, whether it's the Alec Baldwin travesty on ABC the other night, it's the art of the comeback question, right? They give you an answer, and do you just let that answer go, or do you actually push them?
Right.
And Jonathan Swan will actually push people. So he was interviewing Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz is going on about how, different things about Trump, good and bad. Of course, Cruz and Trump had their squabbles, but in the end, I think they shared a lot of the same viewpoints. And they were talking about Trump promising to lower the debt. And Ted Cruz said he didn't, and Jonathan Swan went them off the hook. He kept going back to it, and that's called journalism, right?
Right.
That is called, and he did the same thing with Congresswoman Tlaib. They were talking about the Breed Act that they were sponsoring back in 2020, and it was releasing all federal prisoners within 10 years.
That makes sense.
And yes, it does. And so she was going on, and he brought the point of, so you're okay to release sex traffickers and child molesters within 10 years on a clean slate? And she goes, no, that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. And she goes, there's a lot of people out there that are mentally ill in the prison system, which I think most people would agree with, right? The prison system needs to be fixed. I think both sides can agree on that, of course, when you get to the thing. And he just went and let her off the hook. And this is where, I have trouble with Fox News, because they were showing the interview and they were just kind of hitting the highlights, making her look bad. Well, I went and watched the interview, and she eventually came around to what Jonathan was saying, which was, yes, not everybody is general. Everybody should be treated individually, which of course is what everybody should be doing, is being treated differently based on what they're in for. So yeah, but to release all prisoners within 10 years is ludicrous. And he pushed back on her, and she finally relented to, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I would love to see more of that too. You mentioned newspapers, and unfortunately for old farts like me anyway, who loved our newspaper, it's going away. Newspapers are fewer and far between, and unfortunately for them, they're starting to believe that the way to, I guess, survive is to become more like the broadcast journalism. So they're falling into the same trap now. They've all become partisan newspapers. I mean, Washington Post versus the New York Post versus the New York Times versus the Wall Street Journal, whatever. I can't read the Dallas Morning News front page anymore because I know what I'm reading. But I think that one of the things about having something in print, it lasts a hell of a lot longer. And a lot of these folks who have made their living in front of the camera or these little sound bites, they say these ridiculous things and then they're not held accountable because it just kind of goes away in the ether. It's like, and as fast as things happen, you wait 2 weeks, everybody's forgotten all about it. I mean, they've forgotten it. So there's no harm, no foul. But in that instant, when you flat out gave false information and it was false, who knows what the end result was. And we've seen recently, up in Wisconsin, how the media, whether directly or indirectly, can influence a really bad response to something based on a false narrative they're pushing. And this guy, in response to the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, deciding he's going to plow through a parade, and kill 6-7 people, and a couple are still hanging on. I don't see anything about that, though. I don't see the media even holding themselves accountable for that maybe we shouldn't be pouring kerosene on things. Maybe that's not
yeah, but they're never going to self-govern themselves. They're never going to because if to take the Dallas Morning News, let's say they do an article and they get stuff wrong. Well, when they find out 3 weeks later and they actually do, tell on themselves, it's on page 27, the very bottom right-hand corner, a correction, or whatever. Right. So it's shit, if you remember Michael Irvin, right? When he was accused about rape, he said, y'all better report on this just as hard whenever I'm proven innocent and the charges are dropped, as you are right now. Of course, the charges were dropped. They were false. It was a fake accusation. And, it's not the same coverage. That's the way that it's on either side of the political spectrum. That's the way it is. Now, obviously, I think the media definitely leans left. I think there's no doubt about it, and what you're seeing is, I think you see the journalists are probably far left, right? And that's why you get so many people reporting on in favorability on the squad, right? So they see them favorably, which I think most Americans see them as unfavorably. Yeah. But because they have the same viewpoint, they get a lot of publicity, a lot of because it, whether it's good or not, people like me, which you don't like them, might click on the story anyways. And people that don't like them might click on the story anyways. And that's why it comes down to clicks. Clicks is everything now.
Yeah, and I fall right into the damn trap too, and I think we all do. Social media, my wife will tell you that social media changed the game, and I think, I don't think it invented what we're seeing now, but I sure do think it, it pushed the accelerator down because there's just so much you could share in so little time. And in addition to it being about clicks now, it's who has it first. Yeah. And if you have it first, it really doesn't matter if it's false. You just get it out there.
Well, Nick Sandman, right? I mean, that's the perfect poster child for that thing, right? They had to get the story out. They got the Nathan Phillips, was that his name, right? I think so. The chief, I think it was Nathan Phillips. They got him on there. They do all this stuff, and they don't watch. All you gotta do is watch the video, just like the Rittenhouse case, right? All you had to do is go back and watch the video. It told the story, right? It told exactly what happened and when it happened, and that's why the kid won, millions of dollars from Washington Post and from CNN, and that's why Rittenhouse is going to win some money too from these people probably. And yet they don't learn their lesson. That's the thing about it. They don't learn the lesson. They do the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and it's about, you mentioned that this isn't new, and it's not new. It's about whatever maybe your narrative might be and way to make stories fit into that. But, you remember one of the more iconic pictures in American history is with Harry Truman holding up the paper that says Dewey defeats Truman. I mean, it's not like brand new. And
no.
Like in the 70s, early 70s, you had a lot of military leaders going after Walter Cronkite because they thought that Walter was kind of had an anti-war stance and was making that clear, and Americans were losing their will to fight or whatever it was. Well, of course he was anti-war. I think everybody was at that point.
Yeah.
that still wasn't his job. And it's tough because I wrote this piece that imagine yourself in that kind of situation. You have an opinion you feel so strongly about, and then you have to report somehow middle of the road, and how hard that would be. And that's why I'm not a professional journalist. You know, and now, unfortunately, even the professional journalists aren't professional journalists. They're hacks.
Yeah, they're hacks, and you know, the anti-war is one thing that the left got correct. I think many people agree now, right? Because nobody has an appetite for war. That's what the Afghanistan war just taught everybody, right? It's just like, you know, unless you're fighting Hitler or Stalin or whomever, you know, it's really tough to send your kids over there to fight a battle that might not be yours anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you go back and look at World War I and World War II history. Nobody wanted to get into it, right? I mean, that's why Wilson did not get involved in World War I, and that's why Roosevelt didn't get involved in World War II. They just could not do it. They tried to be neutral, but of course, you know, the U.S. was not neutral. We were building stuff for the Brits and building stuff for the alliance powers back in World War II, and you know, you hear the story about the Lufthansa, right? The boat. It did come out that years later. Yes, we did have war equipment on there, and we did have stuff. You know, and, you know, you don't sink to that though if you're the Germans, but
you mean the innocent cruiser, the cruise liner?
Yeah, right, yeah. It's not Lufthansa, it's Luciana, whatever. I forgot the name of it. Yeah,
Lusitania.
Lusitania. Thank you.
Right? Sure.
But yeah, you know, but the Germans were correct in that we did have stuff on there, but you know, it's not a reason to kill 1,000 people.
So are you going on the record as saying you agree with the Germans? And I just want to make sure I get that right.
That is not correct. The Germans were right about having stuff on the ship. Yes.
Well, and you know that same.
But just for the record, Adolf was a horrible human being.
What a
just
jerk,
for the record. Yeah.
as Norm Macdonald would say.
Yeah. That's good virtue signal on our part that we disavow
Right.
Adolf Hitler.
In the same survey, this goes a lot to showing you what the media, I think, is selling versus what the public wants. So that Reuters survey, 29% trust the media. 74% said they would prefer news with a range of views, even if their views are not favorably represented all the time. And I think that's exactly where I would fall in line. Give me some straight news, because I know, I mean, when people would attack, we'll say the person I voted for in 2020 or 2016, man, I know there's warts all over some of the people that are up there. I don't trust any of them, okay? But if you can't admit the flaws in some of your arguments, there's just no room for discussion. And that we're all so dug in, it's either all or nothing. It's ridiculous.
Well, that kind of supports my CNN process, right? Go 180 and actually just do straight news, straight opinions on both sides, get smart people on both sides, and just have a discussion. You know, and see how that would work. You know, if that 74% says they just want to see both sides, I think that would work for CNN. Whoever it would be, CNN would be a good one because they have the power, they have the name at this point in time. And if they did a 180, boy, I think that would be huge. Now, that also, you know, I think Santa Claus would have to probably be part of that process, and he's not real. So I hope there's no kids listening.
Oh, hey.
So I don't think it's going to happen. You know, I don't think it's going to happen.
You serious, Clark? No, I'd like to see a show with Jake Tapper and Greg Gutfeld. Let's have them both on there and let them show us that they really are journalists. Or, you know, any of Tucker. Get me Tucker and Jake.
No. See, I like, you know, I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm a very pragmatic thinker. And that's one of the reasons why I like Tucker. Because I think Tucker's the same way. He just puts the argument out there process by process by process, and that's how I think, so it works well. Greg, you know, Gutfeld is a libertarian. He's a hardcore libertarian. He's not really conservative. He's not really liberal. He's a very, and so is Cat on his show. So, you know, he might not be the right person to have a good discussion with from a mainstream sense.
Well, people calling themselves libertarians now, because I know that Shapiro, libertarian, Joe Rogan, well, that's what they call themselves.
I know.
Tim Pool, I don't know if you know who Tim Pool is, libertarian.
I know.
But they all sound farther right every day. And I don't know if that's just a sign of the times that we have some opinions that are getting a little too much for people, that they're pulling farther and farther away. Maybe that's what it is. But
Well, yeah, you brought up Rogan, but there's David Rubin. And David Rubin is a classic liberal, right? And he's a classic liberal. Because he's gay, he's for gay marriage. I mean, he has a lot of viewpoints that are not quote unquote conservative, right? But yet he gets painted as a conservative because he is a civil liberties guy, which I am too a lot. But he's a civil liberties guy, and that's what Gutfeld is. There's very civil liberties, and they just want to protect it, and they just get smashed by the media. But what's always interesting, if you watch Fox News, is they don't call themselves media because it's not convenient to them. They just rail on the media, which we're not a part of, but they just rail on the media. But yes, I'm sorry to tell you, you are media. If you're giving an opinion, or you're giving something out there, if you're reporting news, which they report news, you're the media, whether you like it or not. It fits their needs not to be media, because we hate the media.
Dave Rubin has been called a white supremacist. Dave Rubin.
Yeah. Well, so was the African American lady that got appointed, that voted in for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia.
Oh, that's right.
She's a white supremacist. Yeah.
Well, what's his name? Elder. What? Not Elder.
Larry Elder. Yeah.
Oh man.
But once you go against a certain side, and you're labeled something, Uncle Tom, and I think it might have been Larry Elder that came out. No, I forgot which one of the conservatives came out with that documentary called Uncle Tom. I've never watched it, but I hear it's really good.
Brandon Tatum. That's it.
Is that who it was? Brandon Tatum?
Yeah.
Yeah. You get labeled as Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
It's just they once. I've always felt that when you're in an argument or you're in a discussion, once they start calling you names, you've won. It's over. You have won, because they run out of things to argue about. So all they resort to is just bullying you by calling you names. And that's really all it is. It's straight bullying. It's just straight bullying. Trying to get you to shut up by calling you names and saying stuff about you.
Yeah.
Like we do at poker. Like we do at poker games.
Well, yeah, but some of those are deserved shots.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
So does the media have hope, Momo? Is there hope?
No, there isn't hope. I'm a very optimistic person, if you know me. It's not, because again, it's about money. They're all owned by big corporations, right? So it's all about ratings. It's all about clicks. It's all about getting advertisers, and that's why whenever you get a group of people that want to hit the news agencies hard, where do they go? They go to the advertisers, right? Because that's how you hurt them. You hurt them in their advertising dollars. And so that's where they go first. So that tells you all you need to know about what's important, and it's all about advertising. The papers were the last bastion of hope. But again, you can see articles like you said. You can see whether it's magazine or whether it's newspaper from 120 years ago, and it's still the same crap. It's still yellow journalism, and we learned about yellow journalism in school, right? Oh, yeah. In our history classes. So that was around in the 1800s. That's been around forever. There's nothing new under the sun, my friend.
I've read that somewhere.
It's a good quote, isn't it? I think I just made it up.
Yeah, I like that guy's book. It's pretty good.
Okay.
I think that we were trying to read, because doing some research on that, we saw some of the articles back when, like early election cycles and the first presidencies, and they were horrible. I mean, they would go after each other so bad. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not new. So maybe there never was hope. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I mean, the hope has got to be with the individuals listening to learn to try to get more than, one side of an argument. I think that's where it is.
Yeah, you ever watch any of the videos by Army Horowitz?
No.
Oh, he's great. So he's a conservative, but he'll always ask a question to somebody. It's usually somebody on the left, right? And he changes the name to Trump, and he says, Donald Trump said this, and then of course they just rail against it. They get all mad. And he said, well, really that was Obama that said that, or really that was Joe Biden that said that. And I think that's a great way to do it. The left is much better at politics than the right, and the left has the benefit of having the media on their side. I don't think any reasonable person would disagree with all that. And you finally get the people on the right that are starting to do dirty things. And I think Project Veritas, as much as I like seeing it, I think it's dirty. I think it's dirty pool. Anytime you're doing something, recording somebody or on camera without their knowing, I think that's dirty. Now, is it helping out on the right side? It probably is. But I don't. Like I said, I don't like it, but I probably watch about 15 of his videos. So I'm a hypocrite. I'll raise my hand on that one.
Well, look at somebody like Julian Assange.
Yeah.
Wait.
30 years ago, he had been a hero to the left, right?
Been a hero. He would have been the Deep Throat guys.
Yeah.
I forgot the names. What's his name?
Woodward and Bernstein.
Thank you.
Right. But now they're just. But see, that was all a big deal because it was Richard Nixon. There is the FISA warrant abuse is far worse than Watergate because you had the FBI, the DOJ, you had the Clinton, right? The Clinton, doing this whole fake Russian dossier. CNN and MSNBC and CBS, they did a whole thing for 3.5-4 years on Russia, and it was all crap. All crap. And that you're talking about just went away, right? Went away.
They all offered weeks and weeks of retractions, though, and apologies for that.
Yeah, I remember all that too. It was on page 28, page 27, the lower right-hand corner. Oops, we got it wrong.
Right.
But all you have to do is go back. I remember that's probably the most I ever watched Sean Hannity. Because he had Sarah Carter, and she's the one that did a lot of this work, and she was darn good. She did her job. She was a true journalist, even though she was doing it because she's on the right, And then you had Nunez that did that 5-page memo, and then Adam Schiff just got all out of that's not what it says. That's not because they had to go to a secret vault inside Congress to read all the documents, right? So Nunez went in there, wrote his 5-page memorandum, and then. Adam Schiff said, "Oh, he's lying. He came out. He wrote his own 11-page memo because it's like when you're a kid, if you wrote 11-page versus a 5-page, you expected a better grade.
Mine goes to 11.
Right. And then the IG Horowitz, I think also his name was Horowitz, came back and he wrote a thing about the whole thing. And guess what? Guess who was right? Guess who nailed it from the start? It was Nunez.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you have the FBI, the DOJ, you have all of them involved. What was Watergate? Watergate was all about cover-up. It was the Republicans going into the Democrats, offices in Watergate, getting busted, and it was all about the cover-up. That's all they got in trouble for was cover-up.
Right, not the crime. Yeah.
Not the crime, but this crime's a lot worse. And then you watch CNN. I was watching it when we talked about this. I watched about 2 hours when I watched. CNN was on my TV. And so they had the Andrew McCabe, part of that FBI group, and he got fired. He got fired by Rosenstein, who was part of the whole he was a part of the whole thing. But then, he got fired, and here he is on CNN. James Clapper, he lied to Congress many, many times, and here he is on CNN. And then that's when you talk about people. You lose people. Yeah. You lose what people that take you seriously anymore. And then you have Chris Cuomo interviewing his brother, and you got these conservative websites and Fox News talking about how many people Andrew Cuomo killed from COVID in a nursing home, and it's all true. And what happened? What happened as soon as he was out of the door? What did the new governor talk about? They redid the numbers of COVID deaths, right? Yeah. They redid them, and there's a lot more deaths in New York than there was that was reported under Cuomo. And that gets underreported. That's a big deal, isn't it? Isn't that a big deal when the guy that won an Emmy for his leadership,
and a book,
and it's all a lie, and his brother was covering it up, or it's funny because I watched Tucker Carlson that night, and Tucker Carlson was actually, I think Tucker can be fake too sometimes. I think he especially he's surprised at something. He's a pretty smart guy. He shouldn't be surprised at all. But he was actually backing up Chris Cuomo because you're going to protect your brother, right? You're going to protect your brother.
You're going to protect your brother, but you're not going to go try to dox the people that may be
Right.
accusing him.
Correct.
And that's kind of where he was going. He was trying. I mean, he was trying to.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah.
All the stuff about, hey, let me be involved in the prep and the talking points. I mean, that's his life's work.
Right. But he was digging up dirt. He was digging up dirt. Of course he was.
He was like,
Are you familiar with Cheryl?
Tailing the bus, remember?
Yes.
Recently?
Yeah.
Same type of thing. It's like, come on, man. That's just now you're hurting people's lives.
Yeah. That was a great video.
Oh my God! If you want to give a video to your kids, go. This is what it sounds like when you're lying to me.
Yes. Yeah. And then they call the lady in New York, right? She's hammering. She was worse. But I love how the guy driving said, "Hey, it wasn't my idea. That's whose was it? Oh, it was my boss's." Yeah. Here she is.
Yeah.
But you're familiar with Cheryl Atkinson.
Cheryl Atkinson.
She was the one that used to work for CBS. She was their investigative reporter, won a lot of Emmys. And then she got fired, and she wrote a couple of books, about the whole media thing. And so it was back in the Obama days, right? And she wrote a book. Let me find it here. I think it was called Stonewalled. So she wrote a book about her experience, right? And she was digging in on the Fast and the Furious. Okay, then eventually she got shut down. And this to me, this is the number one problem we have here. And her boss at the CBS News president was a guy named David Rhodes. You might not know, you've heard of him. But his brother...
I do remember her now. But
Yes, his brother was Ben Rhodes, who was a national security advisor to President Obama. Okay. So how is that not a complete, conflict of interest? Yeah. I'm in the ophthalmology world, and when doctors get up to present something in front of a crowd, they have a page on their presentation that says who all their consultants with, right? They're consultants with this company and this company and this company and this company. Why shouldn't the media, the newspapers, and all that kind of stuff do the same thing? They should have to. It should be automatic.
I would love for candidates to have the logos for all the companies they invest in.
Yeah.
With their board members or oh my God. Of course, then we'd all realize, you know what? They're all working for the same people.
They are working for the same people.
They're all working for the same people.
And that that comes back to the whole deep state thing, right? Which Trump was right. Trump is correct on.
Yeah.
There's Republicans, they call them rhinos, right? That they don't want Trump to succeed at all because it hurts their business, it hurts their income.
Well, everybody up on the hill's got a pretty good little gig, and when somebody comes in there and tries to blow it up, that does not sit well.
And the Republicans can lick clean, right? They can lick clean because they know the Democrats are going to do all the dirty work, right? They don't have to get their hands dirty with Trump. Right. They can just sit back and say, Trump's a good guy. Trump's a good guy, knowing full well he's going to fail because of what's going on, right? So they can just look clean. And, I actually have respect for the, I know Liz Cheney is they hate her on the right. They hate her as a Republican. I just admire, whether I agree with her or not, they just go against the party. And you got Joe Manchin, and you got Sinema from Arizona.
Yeah.
Because remember, what was the big thing? One of the rallying cries of the thing was, country over party, country over party. Well, that's as long as you're agreeing with that, you're good with the party.
As long as it's your party.
As long as it's your party, right? Yes. But I love them. I love the Mavericks. Whether or not I don't like Mitt Romney, but and then that's maybe I don't like Liz Cheney much. But hey, at least she's thinking for herself and doing what she thinks is correct.
Well, that's kind of John McCain's whole thing, right?
That was kind of John McCain's whole thing, but I think he was less maverick than what was portrayed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah, God rest old John McCain. But anyway.
Yeah, that's one of Trump's stupidities, right? Going after McCain when he dies. I mean, and even going after Colin Powell when he dies. I mean, you're a moron. You're just a flat moron.
He can't help but be an idiot.
Well, yeah, well, that's why I don't miss him. I don't miss the ego. I don't miss the egomaniac. I think he did some good things, but I sure don't miss the ego and he was not a presidential president. I think we should have a presidential president in my world.
Yeah, I do too.
And we don't have one now either.
I
We don't have one now either.
I don't.
No.
I think Obama would definitely pass that test. He was definitely presidential. But we can have a whole nother show on that because, 2006, and I think what happened too is we've had media bias. We've had this kind of dirty pool for years and years. And then in 2016, the unthinkable happened and people's minds blew up.
Yeah.
And so any kind of internal governor they had that might have stopped them from getting in too deep and it being really, really hacky. I mean, you look at videos of Don Lemon giving reports in 2015, for instance.
Yeah.
He's a very rational reasonable guy saying things that some people do not want to hear. You look at him now, you're like, that's not even the same guy.
Yeah. I've seen the same thing you're probably referencing. But it's just like, I hear people all the time. Kennedy, Johnny, if JFK was around, he'd be a Republican. No, he wouldn't be a Republican.
No.
He would not be a Republican. He would be a Democrat, and he would have the points as the senator from Massachusetts would right now. He would, because that's politics.
Yeah.
And they change with the wind. They change whatever's going to get them elected, whatever's going to make their constituents happy. So no, he wouldn't be. He would never say, ask not what you can do for your country, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. He wouldn't say that now, because that's not a Democrat stance anymore.
Yeah, he'd say defund the police.
I'm not sure he'd go that far, because he's smarter than that. He is smarter than that.
I kid.
Yeah.
He might say.
But he probably wouldn't say. He probably wouldn't tell them to shut up about it until now, when Biden has to say that. Oh, that's stupid about defunding the police, right? He has to say it now. He didn't say that 8 months ago or 15 months ago when he was running for president. He can't say that, but now he can.
Well, there's a show too. I want you to go out there and beat some bushes and see what you can find out in your reporting efforts, because we could have an entire show where we just review campaign promises and just see where we stand. And I'm not talking about for the most recent president. I'm talking about for any president. We can roll the dice. It's just amazing. So, anyway, Momo, I'm glad that you jumped on here with me. You're a watchdog. You keep the media. You keep it safe for the rest of us. You and Brian Stelter. You're two of a kind.
Oh, he and I are two peas in a pod. He's a close friend of mine. We go way back. Yeah. He's fantastic. He's the greatest.
It's uncanny. You even resemble each other. It's crazy.
Well, if you consider me George Alexander, I would agree with you. But I'm not quite George Alexander yet. But I'm getting there.
You mean Jason Alexander?
Jason, yeah, George Costanza. Yeah. George Costanza. Yes, yeah.
All right, brother, man. Take care and keep up the good work.
Well, thanks for having me on, Witsy. I appreciate it, buddy. It feels like old times.
Oh yeah, farting cow lives on.
Talk to you later, my friend.